It's a brand new day, first of the working week, and indeed first of a brand new month. Good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief on Channels Television. And we open with great expectations for the week and indeed for the month. And of course, you know that I'm always blessed among men. Hello, Jeffrey. Hello, Kaidi. How are you guys doing?
Well, we're watching the calendar as well. Yeah, it's the first working week, a working day in the month of June, absolutely. So it's a bit interesting, really, because for a lot of people, the salary day was weekend. It was a weekend.
And it finished, right?
And
Exactly. So I saw a lot of places were packed yesterday. I was just driving through town, and I saw all of those areas were packed, and I was just shaking my head like, oh, this is going to be a long month for a lot of people, because the salary will probably be spent right there at that moment. But I'm just saying, I hope that's not your case.
well, minus 1 day. You know, June has 30 days in it, unlike the other months that have 31 days. So maybe they have one less day to wait.
Oh, right. But it's going to be a long month, I think, for a lot of people, really. So I think it's important to be prudent in this very important month.
Particularly with that nationwide strike that is scheduled to begin today.
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to go to that nationwide strike, but at the weekend, I saw something that happened. I think TruthTechon hosted the, charity match in the Gospel Akpabio International Stadium, and we saw that some of the guys who were there could not sing the new national anthem.
Oh, I think I saw that.
And those are the things we're talking about. By the way, welcome to the program. I'm Jeffrey. It's Kayode Kikilu. On the program,
Jeffrey, there are very important issues. You just sometimes forget the formalities and just move on to the deep issues.
The reason I said that is that somehow, of course, it's law. We don't have a choice but to sing the national anthem.
Absolutely.
But this is what I think is happening psychologically. For those of us who are millennials, we are literally anthem orphans right now, because what we're used to, grew up with, has been outlawed. And so we don't have any memory apart from Arise or Come. The people who are celebrating the most are the OGs, the generation of the president and the like, all of them, who are used to, it gives them a sense of nostalgia. And then the very young one now, who are coming up now, this is a new, is a new anthem, so they are going to feel like, okay, this is what we're getting used to. Okay, this is the new anthem and all of that. So both for the very young ones, maybe 2-3 years, and the older generation who started off with this old national anthem, is a good experience for them. But for those of us who all we know our lives is Arise or Come, we're lost in the mix. So, well, I just needed to make that observation quickly.
Definitely. Well, you have a very good point there. Yeah. In fact, you're right on the money. But we're not... we don't need to be at sea. We can learn it. I'm already getting a grip of the first verse. But you're quite right, about
you have no sense of nostalgia.
Difficult it is to get on the bus. Particularly because, when you see younger children who are in elementary school, it's amazing how they're getting in on it already. Those videos that trended from about Friday last week had them reciting the national anthem with joy, I believe, and dexterity. So that was pleasant to watch. But, the government may have to give our own generation some time, to catch up with the national anthem. But Kade is doing quite well already.
Well, I'm trying. Kade, it's not about singing it. Right. Singing it is not a problem. It's just a few lyrics. I'm saying we don't have a sense of experience with it.
Right.
The older generation, the president's generation, they have a sense of experience with it. That's what they grew up with for 18 years, since 1960 to 78. We have an experience with Arise or Come. And this one, we may never have an experience with it. We will always refer to Arise or Come somewhere in our head. That's what I mean.
And what people are saying is hopefully another government will not come again
and change it
back to Arise or Come. But since we're changing a lot of things, it's also been said, I think it was Dr. Akin Fakponda, who dusted up the regional government proposal yet again. Well, some people had said it was at the National Assembly. No, it's not there. It was just something he dusted up because he realized, wait, we're going back in time, okay?
So let's
since we've gone to that anthem, let's go to the regional government too and sort of see how we can move forward with this. But it's been a big debate. Should we go back to the regions, the governments that we had?
Should we go back to the parliaments?
Exactly. So you have a prime minister and then you have a president ceremonial. I doubt if a lot of people running for president now will want that kind of thing, because they're like, no, let us do our own first, then you can now go to it. But it's where we're at right now. Some people have brought up the old police uniform, and I'm talking the ones where you have constabularies, you know, where they had the cap, the shorts, and say, let's go back to the point. But obviously, there are a lot of things we need to go back to the basics on. And I think one of those things for me will be our belief in Nigeria as a people, and I'm talking government and the citizens. And it means that whatever you do, you must do it in the interest of Nigeria. So if you are disbursing funds, if you're to oversee funds, you must do it in the interest of Nigerians. That for me is what we need to go back to. Every other thing, I think, is an add-on. Thank you. Indeed,
we must leave the ideals of the new national anthem, the old new national anthem. And whether it's the old new national anthem or the new old national anthem, we must, leave out the ideals of patriotism, the ideals of a true nationalist, honesty and devotion and commitment to the fatherland. For me, I'm surprised that we're still talking about the national anthem. It says as if the ship will not sail on that on time. I thought that this morning we'll be talking about that conversation with the Minister of Finance. How do you expect
something that is as old as almost 45 years? Minds don't work like that.
Oh, Jeffrey doesn't want to leave that conversation alone.
So it
I'm not
was
saying,
reignited over the weekend.
I'm not opposed. I'm not getting it right. I'm not saying don't sing or sing. That's law. You don't have a choice. I'm saying something you're used to for the whole of your life. For those of us who are millennials, that's what we know. You can't just, not even the next 3 years. So it doesn't
Jeffrey,
work like that.
Don't worry, we're going to take you through a lesson after.
You're a millennial, so where are you running to?
You're going to learn the new national anthem, the old new national anthem. I know the new national.
Okay, go on. Go on to what you want to say.
So people are you a millennial? You've been dodging behind and making us think you are.
Well,
anyway, I love that.
Ignore them. Okay, so what do we have for you today? Well over 4 hours after that emergency meeting between the leadership of the National Assembly and Labour leaders, it appears the unions are unyielding in their demands and are going ahead with today's planned strike. So we'll revisit the issues, of course, with a specific look at government's proposition and Labour's demands.
And that's not all. Remember, we will now begin to focus. It's not just the federal government that has a responsibility to citizens. Of course, somebody said at the federal or as citizens, but at the state level, we are indigents. We'll review the roles of states and local government in developments, especially the Constitution of Nigeria vested with enormous executive power in governors. It charges the governors with execution of laws, appointment of the judiciary and other regulatory bodies. We'll look at the entire gamut of the issue of the states and the local government, what distinguishes them, and why are we having this bottleneck and fight all the time, and the federal government has tried to intervene. Let's see how that plays out. That is the conversation we'll be having today. It's a good time to be on the show.
Well, it's going to be a very busy day, absolutely, and stay with us right here on Channels Television as we take you through all of the happenings across the country. You saw the map of the country right there, so here's what we'll do. Wherever you're at on that map, send in your messages, your comments, and your thoughts about the big issues. Let's make this a confab of sorts. Yes, there was a 2014 confab, but this is a 2024 confab right here on the Morning Brief. And here's how to do it. Go on X or any other social media platform, hashtag CTV Morning Brief, or on some of our aunties and grandma's favorite platforms, WhatsApp. That is the number with which you can send us a message. Or if you've got videos about maybe the protest or the strike, as the case may be, how it's affecting you. Maybe you get to work and you see it's locked. Do a video, send it in. Let us show the world just how this strike by Labour is impacting on your business, your everyday life today, because D-Day is today. Right.
So what would you rather be talking about? Would it be that what seems to be an emerging showdown between government and organized labor? That's the planned nationwide strike for today. Or would you be talking about that conversation, with the Minister of Finance yesterday, with our political editor, Sean Kibaloye, where so many measures, policies of government were revealed? Or would it be politics at the subnational level? River State is still in the news. So much to talk about today. So start typing already, and we'll take your comments in about 10 minutes from now. Your perfect day starter is unfolding already. We'll be right back with the top stories. Welcome back. All appears set now for a showdown between labor unions and the federal government as organized labor commences a nationwide strike today over failed negotiations on the new minimum wage. This follows the failure of last-minute attempts by the leadership of the National Assembly to avert the strike by organized labor to get the labor unions to sheath their swords. After about 4 hours of meeting, which also had in attendance the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, Minister of Finance, Mr. Wale Edu, Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, the labor leaders stuck to their guns to go ahead with the strike.
We are also on the side of the people. We are on your side, but we must also be mindful of collateral damage. I don't want us to, in the course of trying to arrive at minimum wage, we end up with a lot of serious issues of unemployment. Because as soon as we arrive at a minimum wage, we'll expect the private sector to also adhere. And then if they are unable to do so, the next thing will be retrenchment of workers.
We are quite committed to finding a way forward, finding a living wage, finding a survival wage, and not starvation wage for Nigerians.
Things have been really difficult. In the last 1 year, that difficulty has even further exacerbated. And that is why this year's minimum wage conversation is a bit tough and it's a bit difficult. As at the last meeting, we were very, very close to signing off. I mean, close in the sense that if the figures were right, it's just to prepare a report and sign. So it's not something that is that lengthy anymore. But we have listened to them. We would take all their plea to our organs, and we would have an organs meeting taking what they have promised and the pleas that they have made to our organs. For now, we don't have the powers to call off the industrial action, so the industrial action will continue while we would have a conversation with our respective organs as soon as possible.
In the meantime, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, has described the call to industrial action by the NLC and the TUC as premature, ineffectual, and illegal. The AGF insists that the proposed strike action by organized labor is at variance with the order of the National Industrial Court and ongoing mediators' settlement efforts over issues connected with the subject matter of the order. The minister stated that the declaration of strike by organized labor was premature at a time when the federal government and other stakeholders involved in the tripartite committee on determination of a new national minimum wage have not declared an end to negotiations. He also reminded organized labor of the interim injunctive order granted on June the 5th, 2023, which restrained both union congresses from embarking on any industrial action or strike, stating that the order has neither been stayed or set aside and therefore remains binding on the labor unions. And to Kogi State now, where government has announced the rescue of the remaining 8 kidnapped students of the Confluence University of Science and Technology, Osara, Kogi State. The state government, in a press release by the State Commissioner for Information and Communication, Mr. Kingsley Fanwu, also directed full support towards the recovery of the students and their parents. The state governor, Usman Ododo, expressed profound gratitude to President Bola Tinubu for directing the mobilization of resources to ensure the rescue of the kidnapped students. Meanwhile, the Kwara State Police Command has attributed the rescue of the remaining kidnapped students, including 5 female and 3 male, to the combined efforts of the officers, the National Security Advisor, the military, and local vigilante. And now to other national issues. Nigeria's former military president, Ibrahim Babangida believes it's time for a new narrative for the country in order to change its fortunes, and he believes professionals in the field of public relations have a role to play in that regard. General Babangida was speaking at his uphill residence in Mina, north central of the country, where he granted audience to the Nigeria Institute of Public Relations, NIPR. The visit is part of activities to mark the 60th Diamond Jubilee anniversary of the institute.
We needed to rewrite the narrative of this great country. And wherever I go, I will be quoting you and be saying that the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, people should come to Nigeria, copy what you are doing, so that other countries could learn. Once more, congratulations for the good job you have been doing to the country and for keeping very steadfast in implementing all what the country expects of you to do. I feel very proud of you, and I'm glad that you have lived up to the expectations of the citizens of this country.
The Minister of Finance, Mr. Wale Edun, has been speaking on efforts by the federal government to strengthen the economy and tackle inflation. Speaking on our political program, Politics Today, Mr. Edun explains that the federal government is transitioning into the use of compressed natural gas to reduce dependence on petrol.
Fuel is imported. That means that the more supply of foreign exchange we have, of course, the lower the price, and therefore the foreign exchange impact of fuel is lessened. Clearly, it is a combination also of pivoting away from petroleum imports by the time we are now focusing much more on CNG. So it is an ongoing conversation, it's an ongoing process of ensuring that fuel subsidy is eliminated from the Nigerian economy. That is what Mr. President's intent is, and that is what is being worked towards. And as I say, we do have reason to be optimistic. Difficult as it is, those particular difficult areas now are what is being focused on, including, I've said, fuel pricing to get down transport costs and even to put purchasing power back in the hands of Nigerians. And the fight against inflation is a fight for all, because inflation destroys not just the value of savings and the value of investments, but it hurts the whole fabric of society. And that's why Central Bank, as an independent controller of monetary policy, is emphasizing it. Nonetheless, the commitment to ease those pains is a very, very robust one, and it is going to keep having beneficial results as we go down the road. Nigeria is on the right path.
And out of politics, Rivers State to be precise, where the governor, Siminalayi Fubara, has said that he never believed he could stay in office up to 1 year following the political crisis that rocked the state shortly after he took office. Speaking at a church Thanksgiving to conclude the activities to mark his first anniversary, Governor Fubara said 2 months ago nobody would have believed that the 1 year anniversary of his administration would hold.
I can tell you on good authority that even before we started this program, there was every plan to frustrate us. But to the glory of God, we're all gathered here to say, God, thank you that you carried us, you led us to this point. In fact, we have only one song, and that song is to God. He said, from the beginning to the end, there is no place for argument You are God to God by yourself. We might not have gotten it completely right. We believe that as we move on, it will get better and better. And it is only with your support. I want to thank you from the... You don't understand. You don't understand. What the devil thought was evil they were going to inflict on us, God turned it to blessing and good.
Meanwhile, a few days after some Ijaw members threw their weight behind Governor Fubara in the ongoing political crisis in the state, another group, this time the Rivers Ijaw People's Congress, have endorsed and thrown their support behind the FCT Minister, Nyesom Wike, for his support in producing a governor of Ijaw extraction. The endorsement was given during an event in Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital, which was well attended by top political office holders of Ijaw extraction from across the River Rhine local government areas of the state.
As Ijaw people, we are eternally grateful to His Excellency Nyesom Wike for championing and supporting the emergence of an Ijaw son as the governor of Rivers State. We are, however, saddened and embarrassed by the infusion of false narrative of ethnic coloration into issues of disagreement between the governor of Rivers State, His Excellency Sir Similai Joseph Fubara, and his benefactor, His Excellency Barrister Nyesom Wike, and in which the governor appears to weep the Ijaw ethnic sentiment as though there is raging war and acrimony between Ijaw ethnic nationality and Honorable Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, His Excellency Nyesom Wike. Nothing can be further from the truth. That over the centuries, the Ijaw people have been historically known for their gratitude to their benefactors. And this has not changed even in this present circumstance.
Well, outside our shores now, former U.S. President Donald Trump has said his historic trial and criminal conviction have been very hard for his wife, former First Lady Melania Trump. Last week, jurors found Mr. Trump guilty of falsifying business records to conceal hush money payments made to former porn star Stormy Daniels during the 2016 presidential election campaign. With the verdict, he became the first U.S. president to be convicted of a crime. He has described the trial repeatedly as politically motivated. In an interview with the international media over the weekend, Mr. Trump vowed that success at the upcoming November U.S. election would be his revenge. He is slated to be sentenced on July the 11th and plans to appeal the convictions. The trial included lurid details of the alleged meeting between Mr. Trump and Ms. Daniel. And to sports now. On 15 Super Eagles players were involved in training in Uyo on Sunday in preparation for the 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifiers against South Africa and Benin Republic. This was revealed by the new Eagles media officer, Promise Efoge, on June the 10th. The team will travel to Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, to take on Benin Republic on match day 4. According to the media officer, 13 players trained on Sunday morning, while 2 more arrived thereafter, and 15 trained later in the evening. Efoge then stated that 8 more players are still being expected in camp ahead of the double-header games, and the 15 players in camp some of them are Wilfred Ndidi, Kelechi Iheanacho, Samuel Chukwueze, Stanley Nwabali, Terem Murphy, Victor Boniface, and Raphael Onyedika. Great expectations from the Eagles there, and here's wishing them our very best as they take on South Africa and Benin Republic in the World Cup qualifiers. Now, perhaps that's one of the things that you prefer talking about. Jeffrey joins me now to review your thoughts on the big story. Hello, Jeffrey. So what makes an impression for you?
The ping pong in Rivers State, the ping pong between the federal government and Labour.
I'm not surprised.
Loads of ping pong. So it's how these things play out. But at the end of the day, Nigerians will say we'll be fine last. But we hope that everybody finds a point to reconcile and find a common ground, because it's an issue of common ground. Politics in Rivers State is against issues around wage and welfare of workers between the federal government, and we're seeing posturing, we're seeing a bit of subtle grandstanding on both sides. The federal government is certainly grandstanding. You know, when you look at the statement of Lateef Fagbemi, the AGF, and what the police released this morning as against the position of Labour, so everybody's trying to take their own position. We don't want to go to the detail, but let's hear what the people are saying, and that's where we'll start from. NLC, NTUC has decided to start indefinite strike. Why Dogonzo says that's your handle. I just used to call you handle. So far, labor unions have done a wonderful job. Standing firm for the reversal of electricity tariff hike and disbanding of the bans is commendable. However, a minimum wage beyond 100K may not be a realistic one. Kindly bring it down to between 80 to 100K. That's 100,000.
Well, I thought the people would be advocating for more for their own. Well, you never cease to, democracy never ceases to surprise me. This one is from Nuhu Aliyu, who says, figure out a way to fight for increased productivity, and people should be paid fairly based on their capacity, and watch how the economic situation improves, rather than fight for salary increment, of which 70% of those involved are barely productive, and yet inflation rises.
Okay, Sean Adeluka says, I am not a government worker, but I support the labor unions on this action, because Nigerian government must be sincere in whatever they are doing. How reasonable is 60,000 naira to, I want to read it from here, to a Nigerian at this time when we are paying higher electricity bill, transportation is high. Okay.
Well, that's not all that is high, but let's leave that and go to another reaction from this one from Kayode Abraham, who says, I am in full support of strike action in the light of the serious economic hardship bedeviling Nigerians, except of course the politicians and political class. In my strong opinion, I have concluded that anything less than 80K and greater than 120K is unacceptable as new minimum wage.
I like your position. It's your view. Mayor Mbise says this minimum wage saga has dragged for so long, yet nothing is happening. But the national anthem reversal was presented and passed into law almost immediately. This shows how, he says, on serious on both labor unions and the federal government. Again, it's unreasonable to demand 500,000 naira.
And it pretty much supports your point about grandstanding. There's a contradiction in even some of what Labour is saying about how they had reached an agreement initially, but that something happened, and then they had to call it all off. So if they reach an agreement, why are we back to square one? What was the agreement that was reached? Was it higher than 60,000 naira, which is what we know right now? So many questions to ask. But this last one on this talking point is from Liz Tuti, who says Labour has taken a major step on minimum wage by embarking on a nationwide strike. Please, this time around, let the strike hold for days or weeks, for this is critical and important. Failure to go on with the strike shows Labour has no stand.
So it's an indefinite strike they're declaring. There's no time limit to it. Of course, one of the grounds of Labour against the federal government is the fact that we came together with a proposal. We broke it down as to how we arrived at a certain amount. How did you break yours to 60,000? And federal government now is making a case as to the law and the legality or otherwise. The IGP of police is saying, based on the pronouncement of the federal government, let's abide by the rule of law and all of that. Well, let's see how the plays out. But there's another one you're talking about. Tinubu Shetima spent 8.64 billion on travel expenses in 3 months. Those I think you're talking about. Oluke says traveling is part of governance and flying private jets are not moi. That's not easy. It comes with a package.
Well, is that justification? Well, I'm just wondering. It's just a valid question in the light of the circumstances. This one is from Moshe Bolaton, who says, I think we spend too much on traveling, and I wonder why. Even the NAF 001 don't tire. We have embassies in most of these countries. Over 50% of what we budget on recurrent expenses are unnecessary or can be substituted with cheaper and effective alternatives.
Okay, Ngbada Prosper says they keep telling us that there's no money, yet they spend this amount to on travel expenses. It's too huge. They will now ask us to make sacrifices. Sacrifices, I don't know what that means, what he wanted to say there.
Well, I was going to ask that what's the budget of some other smaller African countries as against what has been said was spent on travel? It's just a valid question.
We're the biggest economy. Okay, we're the fourth largest now. We're no longer the largest economy. We're actually the fourth largest economy because our GDP is about $250 to $280 billion away from what it was in 2022. I remember over $400 billion. Dollars in terms of GDP value.
Well, this last one on this talking point is from Benga Akeju, who says, aren't they wonderful to tell us to suffer small before witnessing their magic economic transformation while the president and vice president spend money like an Arab prince? We need to be honest with ourselves, particularly our leaders should be a bit religious with the poor. Well, I believe they're trying their best. Maybe their best is not good enough.
Okay, let's talk about that national anthem. You also been talking about it. The president saying is a priority. I think I saw an interview one time. You know when these things happen, we saw an interview popping up. That I say if he has his way, we'll change it. Dr. Aminu Yusuf says, you need to change the following economic policies before changing the anthem. Open borders and allow foreign products to come in without any restriction. Make the value of any foreign currency not more than 100 naira. And make fuel pump price 15 naira. Wow, this will be magic.
Would that be realistic? Okay, so let's go to this next one.
That's some real tall expectation.
Very tall. This one is from Ani Upana. I hope I got your name correctly. How does the president of a nation feel after saying this? Inflation, insecurity, poverty. There are many other issues that should fall under that priority. The national anthem was never an issue. Well, it seems as if there is...
of course, everybody will have their own
There are more who are tilting towards this side of the opinion on the new national anthem.
I think the argument here is not the national anthem, is whether it's a priority or not. That's this argument for them. And Ojobo says, so upon all the problems, it's been long I heard that kind of English, of insecurity, hunger, economic doom, no, not economic doom, by the way. And all facing Nigeria under your watch, what could come to your mind as a priority is a change of national anthem, which has no effect on our problem as Nigerians. It's okay,
See, that's what I'm saying, that's the preponderance of sentiment, because it doesn't change the price of tomatoes in the market, which, by the way, is hitting the rooftop right now. In line with what Nigerians are saying, the new minimum wage, negotiations on the new minimum wage should just be as speedy as deliberations on the national anthem was. So this next one is from Jumi Josh Falade, who says, according to the president, that means that the now former anthem was segregating us. Tinubu de Pleo, if we like, call the most holy person to write our anthem. If our leaders continue to do the wrong things, nothing will change.
All right, creative winners, you say, with profound respect to the lawmakers and to the president, we are highly disappointed. This is absolutely unnecessary and completely misplaced priority. Whoever made them move the motion doesn't mean well for we or for us. I guess that's what you wanted to say. And our hero who's placed, there is time to compose compatriots. I'm not sure, but I'm sure you're trying to say, look, there's time for everything. Right.
And the last talking point will be IGP warns against extortion by policemen. So we saw that bit of information coming through on Saturday, where he told them in clear terms, unequivocally, that is not part of
this is not the first time.
function.
Let's be clear, this is not the first time we're in IGP
Absolutely,
talk.
Jeffrey.
We're tired of talks. Well, let's just see action. With due respect and profound respect to the IGP, I'm sure that's the sentiment of Nigerians. They want to see action. IGPs over IGPs, I say, remove roadblocks, stop collecting bribes, stop extorting people. It never stops.
But sometimes roadblocks are absolutely necessary, particularly for highways that are bedeviled by kidnapping and all sorts of crime. But there is also no mechanism for monitoring policemen who are stationed on those highways, so we don't know we know what they do, really, don't we?
The reason why this is an important conversation, before we read the tweet, is the fact that the extortion by the bad elements in the police is part of what causes inflation. Let's be clear. The Agbero is collecting money. Police is collecting money, the bad elements, we must say, because not all of them do it. And every other levy is being charged on food that has been transported from one point to the other. And all of that comes to the consumer. So if the IGP really wants to do this and he does this, we're going to applaud him for this. So, but let's hear what the people are saying. Luckyman says, the organization needs total reform. They should recruit more of the educated individuals with sound mental state rather, increase the salary structure. With this, they will discharge their duties in orderly manner and public confidence and trust will be regained.
Well, that sounds like Uhuru. But this one is from Moses here. I hope I got your name. Policing is local. How does this message trickle down to the rank and file in my village? Does the IG even know how and which fund is used to run the stations in my local government? State police is long overdue. Well, that's
a conversation for another day.
That's another debate.
Ajuba 101, we're going to talk about that later on the show. Thank you very much, IGP. You've done well. This debriefing and orientation is long overdue. My fellow citizens, you've all heard the word change and command from the leader of the MPF. With this, no more extortion, and don't forget, no greed, I guess wanted to say, no greed for anybody. God bless Nigeria.
Amen to that. And this one is from Dr. Junwot Tiga, who says, I was born to know the Nigeria police and extortion as one and the same. That's a big one. I also grew up hearing on a regular basis that the IGP warned police officers against extortion. This is mere rhetoric. Nothing serious. Can we be serious about ending extortion by police officers?
Some have even said, comedians have even said, remove the police, pockets of policemen. Just remove the pockets so they don't have where to keep the money. But anyway, Ahmad Wakili says, please do increase their salary, which is very important. We've advocated for this for a long time. To a minimum wage of 450,000 naira per month and see wonders. I'm sure if you do that, you'll see wonders and wouldn't see any reason to want them again. I think it has to be a two-sided argument. On one hand, we're saying stop extorting people. On the other hand, how about their welfare? Are they being paid well? Police are being paid embarrassing salary, literally embarrassing. If you go close to some of them and ask questions, we've had some of them on the show who have disclosed to us how much a policeman, the lower ranks and the middle and even up to the higher level collect. These are men who you arm with guns to protect the lives of citizens and property of citizens, and then you're paying them abysmally. It's unacceptable by any standard.
Well, we hear you, Hamad Wakili, but reform, I believe, should be a decision, a personal decision of the individual, such that whether or not there's the temptation to decide to be an honest person. We are who we are, really, when no one is watching, not necessarily when we are being induced or incentivized not to be one that pilfers. Well, we hear you, we hear all of your thoughts, and your thoughts are valid. We're going to continue the conversation on a myriad of issues as we begin the program after this time out. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Well, it's a big day, really, for labor unions, the Trade Union Congress and the Nigeria Labour Congress. True to their words, the strike begins today, June the 3rd, 2024. I know the president had talked about how in just about 8-9 months of his administration, he had seen 4 strikes. So add this to the list, that's 5 strikes in 12 months. Well, this morning we're getting a status report about just how far-reaching this strike is. We're joined on the program by Comrade Benson Upa, who is the head of Information and Public Affairs, Nigeria Labour Congress. He joins us from the nation's capital, Abuja. Also joining us is a member, Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria, fellow Institute of Chartered Mediators and Conciliators Managing Consultant, CEO, Devic Professional Consultants Limited, Dr. Emmanuel Irayanama. He joins us as well from Port Harcourt, the River State capital, this morning. Gentlemen, welcome to the morning brief.
Good morning.
Well, naturally, I'll begin with you, Comrade Upa, and just to get a status update on this strike. We've seen statements from the different organs of NLC and the TUC, from food and beverage to judiciary workers and the rest, ordering the members to begin this strike. But I wonder if you've seen this statement from the police. The Inspector General of Police put out a statement signed and dated June the 3rd. That's today. And it's titled that essentially organized labor should shelve its strike, comply with legal procedures to prevent breakdown of law and order. Comrade Upa, are you aware of this and how do you respond?
Well, I do not know which legal procedure the IG is talking about. Probably it should be reached to explain to us what it means by legal procedure. We're not under any obligation to take permission from the police. The right to peaceful strike or protest is available. It is open. It's available in our constitution. It is available in the corpus of our labor laws. So I do not understand what the IG is talking about.
Right. So let's just do a refreshing as to why this is happening in the first place. There's been a lot of events building up to this moment right here. But just so we don't lose sight of the main issues, Comrade, what are the main issues on the table for labor? We saw that last-minute intervention by the National Assembly. It fell through. So what are the major outstanding issues for labor?
Yeah, the major issues are actually 2. The first is a pronouncement on what the national minimum wage should be, a figure that is at once realistic, reasonable, and equitable. Then, second, a reversal of the hikes in tariff, 250%. These, broadly speaking, are the issues. Coming to the issue of the minimum wage, you will recall we had offered 615,000, backed up with statistical data, with accommodation which we put at 40%, feeding 500 naira per member of the family per meal, which came to 270% in a month. That is no meat, no soup ingredients, nothing, just raw prisoner food. We did all of that, and government made a counter offer of 48,000 without breaking it down, as we did. Government, and we also scaled our offer down. The government came to 60,000, and we said, okay, we must also be reasonable. And we came to 494,000. That is where we stalemated, or that was where we stalemated. Of course, we had explained to government to start this process much earlier. Government, in the MOU we signed on the 2nd of October 2023, had agreed to start this minimum wage process much earlier, but he did not. Had it started, probably there would have been much time to talk about what to do. But even then, it's not about time per se. It is about the commitment of government. There is a commitment deficit. There is a commitment deficit on the side of the government.
Well, comrade, pardon me to butt in here quickly. I just want to be sure where we're at. So at least we know what the federal government is offering, 60,000 naira. Are you still I'm sorry?
60,000.
Yes, 60. But is Labour still sticking to 400 plus thousand?
Yeah, you see, we are open to reasonable negotiation, but certainly not 60,000.
Okay.
At the moment, government in principle is paying 78,000. So what government is doing is what we call a regressive counter offer.
All right. So, comrade, just a moment. Let's bring in Dr. Iroy Nama on this one. Jeffrey.
Doctor, let's bring you in, as my colleague has said, on this particular debate, because where we are right now is grandstanding. Labour is saying we will go on strike, no matter who is saying what. The Attorney General is saying, look, it's illegal, citing different suits that has not been set aside. And the IGP of police is now saying we will follow the law. Labour should reconsider its position, urging everybody to shoot their sword. But it's a grandstanding on our side. But my question is, Labour is coming from a point of need by their calculation. This is what an average family is expected to spend, which is why we're proposing this. But government is coming from a point of availability and sustainability. From your experience, how should this be approached to find a common ground?
First, the truth be told, need without a pocket is actually no need. Any increase whatsoever will be a function of ability to. If governments or indeed employers think that they will not be able to, whatever your need is, won't work out. But before anything, we also need to clarify something that is very important, and that's the fact that what we're talking about here is minimum wage and not necessarily salary increase, which the different employers will need to talk about. I'm aware that as of today, even though the minimum wage is 30,000 naira, particularly for the organized private sector, you hardly will find anybody paying anybody 30,000 naira. We must not forget that for you to be paid or employed in the first instance, there must be business. And so any demand within that space should be as much as possible considerate and reality-faced. You may need everything you want. Need is free. Elementary economics tells us that human wants are insatiable. But there is something that determines how much that one can be reached or met. And that's your pocket. Labour, for me, at this point, needs to go do some more thinking. I agree that where parties meet like this, part of the beauty of collective bargaining, as it were, is what we're finding, the touch back and front. But in my opinion, strike wouldn't be the best way to go. Our laws are very clear with sanctions when strikes are not done properly. It is a pity that government, as the biggest employer of labor, most times talks from the two sides of our mouth. But all the same, we are here. The parties must be rational.
All right, let's build up on what you just said. Labour sees government as putting up an unreasonably low amount. Government is seeing Labour as putting up an unreasonably high amount. And this has been the back and forth. In fact, one of the Labour statements said that they don't even think that the government is serious enough, because the last meeting they didn't see any governor, no minister apart from the Minister of Labour, State for Labour and all of that. So I want you to speak to this issue of unreasonably high and low issue, because that's where the challenge is.
Yeah, let's even ask ourselves some simple question. One, is government the only employer in this case? The answer is no. The private sector takes almost about between 50 and 70% in the country. I recall that the private sector actually initially offered 48,000 naira and then increased it to 60, and government merely joined them at 60. It's a tripartite meeting. It's not government and labor alone. So we must get certain things clear. You don't go to the market and then tell me all the things you want as a list and say, because I employed you, I must provide them. It doesn't happen anywhere. Anywhere. It doesn't happen. You should also equally say, this is how much I'm bringing to bear. And that's what the private sector will really do. We talk about productivity. Perhaps labor should be innovative to say, in this new agreement, we want to say labor must bring this in to be able to get this. And so where they do not bring this in, they shouldn't get it. Labor should be innovative to add that into that agreement, if that's part of the things they want. And then we'll see how far a country will have. A beautiful country, perhaps.
Well, let's bring in Comrade Upa now to respond to some of the points you have made. Comrade, I'll just give you an overview of some of the things Dr. Iroyanam has said. Well, he essentially says that on the one hand, for you to be employed and to be paid, there needs to be business. So he sort of views this down tooling as inimical to what you're
saying. Something to law. You must also look at the ability to implement that law all through. We need to be careful. And for me, what I keep saying is this. Labor should bring out those simple things and let's tackle them one after the other. You're looking at what politicians are earning. Who can tackle it and raise that as a serious national issue, as against what labor is being paid? Not for necessarily increment, but reduction in that aspect. There are certain things that the economy will have. The discussion on pay itself will reduce. They've mentioned housing, they've mentioned food, they've mentioned several things around the economy. How do we jumpstart those areas?
Dr. Iroyanam, Doctor,
yes.
I'm trying to understand your logic. Are you saying that what the ruling class is earning has no bearing on this conversation on minimum wage and on productivity in the economy?
It does.
So if it does, why are you asking that it be tackled independently?
Okay. What I'm saying is this. Labor has complained, which is true, that the so-called political class, while claiming that there is no ways and means of taking care of the increment, as earning X, Y, Z. And he did mention even what councillors are earning, what assembly members are earning, what executive chairman, council chairman, state governors, presidents, and the rest of them are earning. And I'm saying that is a leakage, a serious leakage, ordinarily. And that could be tackled to say, you need to bring this down. Because what is happening in the entire market is the fact that all of us go to the same market. And when you get into the market, because there are a class of persons who have it, they end up distorting the price. So your goods are actually not sold for the real price. And so you that is earning maybe the 30 or the 60,000 that is proposed now may not be able to function in that market properly. Yes, it's a serious issue that should be tackled. Right. Now we can look at that. Because the whole bottom line of wanting extra more money is actually pursuing what could be purchased.
Right. So I see the angles that both gentlemen are approaching this from, but which of them will move the needle the right way is now the big debate now. So let me come to Comrade Upa now, because there are diverse ways people are seeing that this could be approached. One of them is from the doctor who says you could maybe approach these things sort of maybe independently without going this route, basically. But Comrade Upa, speak to us about the game plan of labor now. How long are you willing to go on this strike Because it's also been said that the more the strike continues, take, for example, the national grid, so that means there's no power. For those who are trying to make a living with power, which they don't get as always anyway, but those who are depending on it, obviously they can't do anything. They have to revert full-time to buying petrol. And you know how much petrol is today. We can talk about the food and beverage. We can talk about aviation as well. We understand that there's been move in the aviation sector as a result of that strike. The judiciary is also involved, and the list goes on and on. So how far is Labour willing to go with this strike? Are you planning to go 1 week, 2 weeks, as long as it takes for federal government to come to a reasonable wage?
Well, we made it amply known that that it will be an indefinite strike action, and that is because we virtually exhausted every process at an amicable resolution of this imbroglio. But government was contemptuous, or government behaved in a very contemptuous manner to labor. He completely ignored labor. In fact, I do remember in your introductory remarks, you did say that you did make the point that government officials are not even there, other than the Minister of Labor. They just say, let the idiots go to hell. What can they do? And they forget entirely that labor creates wealth. Okay? And all we're asking is, treat us decently. Pay workers decently. You know, other than Lagos and perhaps one or two states, the economies of the states are driven by wages. Whenever salary stops, everything else stops. I'm quoting my late friend, Colonel Contagora. So, and you also have to admit that we've got to learn from history. When Obama became president, and the U.S. was in recession, what did he do? He raised wages. He gave money to big business, and that created some synergy.
Right.
And the U.S. economy went into a bullish run all the way to the Trump presidency. So all we're saying is that pay a minimum wage that is reasonable. Well, in fact, I'm not even saying paying a living wage.
So
the president himself, Mr. President himself, when he came in, he promised to pay a living wage.
Right.
We're not asking for a living wage yet. We're asking for a minimum wage.
Right. So, comrade, quickly, because we need to go to the streets now and see just how this strike is holding across board. Is 100,000 naira, is it reasonable?
Well, it is not for me to say, but one thing I can assure you of this, comrade, is that labor is not fixated on 494. We are ready to negotiate.
Oh, clearly. I think we're all clear on that. We know that 494 is a far cry, but of course it's a negotiation tactic. So we need to know what the goal is. So maybe Nigerians can also help you put pressure on government. Is 100,000 naira the goal? Because I imagine you're trying to carry Nigerians along as well. So 100,000 naira, would that be a fair one?
I cannot say yes or no to you on this platform whether 100,000 naira is fair or whatever.
Right.
I would want you to do the math.
All right.
If you're able to do the math and they add up, fine.
Well,
but then I want to tell you that a bag of rice is 80,000.
There you go.
Okay.
Well, comrade, it's quite interesting how we're seeing the math play out. We have to anchor, but you can land on your point. Yes,
hello, can you hear me, sir?
Absolutely, you can land on your point quickly.
I'm saying that government can solve this problem by the endless devaluation of the naira. Government created this problem, okay? Government created this problem. Why for goodness sake would you leave your currency to the storms of the market? And you're an import-dependent country. There is no protection for the naira.
Well,
so now, even for the organized private sector,
right,
they are dying. 40% of big business is gone. 30%
Well, comrade, we have to anchor at this point because of time. And I do hope that all of those points are raised during the negotiations as well. So it's not just a minimum wage negotiation. All of those ideas are brought through. But we have to thank you so much. Obviously, you're not going to work today. So thank you for your time. We've been speaking with Comrade Benson Upah, who's the head Information and Public Affairs Nigeria Labour Congress, joins us via phone from the nation's capital, Abuja, as well as Dr. Emmanuel Ryanema, who is a member, a CIPM, a fellow Institute of Chartered Mediators and Conciliators, also managing consultant and CEO, Davik Professional Consultants Limited. Thank you so much for your time as well.
Always my pleasure.
So we're still staying in Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital, where our correspondent Charles Operum joins us right now from the airport in the state. Well, Charles, we understand that aviation workers are also joining this strike action. So is it holding, and how much is it affecting the state in general, Charles? Well, Charles, if you can hear me, we just came off a conversation with NLC, Head of Information and Public Affairs.
Head of Information, Public Affairs.
Right. You can go ahead, Charles.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Just go, give us it. Members of ANAP, Association of Nigerian Aviation Professionals, they were just about singing their solidarity songs as they announced that they were embarking on an indefinite strike, as announced by, or as directed rather, by the leadership of the NLC and the TUC. In fact, they have moved from here to the toll gates which leads into the airport, and they've blocked it because ever since they moved, they haven't seen vehicles coming in. Interestingly, passengers are still coming in. They are going inside. But the chairman of ANAP, Emmanuel Aka, told me that there is no checking in and no boarding. So I spoke with him earlier, and this is it.
Charles, basically what we're seeing now is what you spoke to about the association singing a solidarity song and now going to the toll gate to sort of stay there. But you say that passengers are still coming in, so it looks like it's some sort of measured action, still allowing people come in, but not vehicles, so maybe you have to stop at the gate. But speak to us about the general atmosphere in Rivers State, because it's also important to note that it's not just aviation workers that have embarked on the strike as well. We understand the judiciary workers, food and beverage, NUI, that's Electricity Employees Association. So speak to us across board. How is this holding for Rivers State?
Okay. While I was driving to the airport, if you know Port Harcourt, well, you know that the Port Harcourt airport is on the outskirts of the city, right? So, but I had to drive in front of the Federal Secretariat. The gate was closed. I didn't see anybody in front of the Federal Secretariat. And then I drove all the way down here. My colleague is at the State Secretariat. I'm sure more reports will come in from there. But getting to the gate of the airport, there was heavy security presence. I saw Toyota Hilux vehicles, the type that is used by the police, and of course military people. Just outside this shot, you can't see them, but there are men of the Nigerian Air Force, men of the Nigerian police around here trying to make sure that there is no breakdown of law and order. But generally, the atmosphere in Port Harcourt is calm. We haven't seen any massive protests just yet. Probably to happen later this morning, but when I was coming here, everywhere was calm. People were going about their normal businesses, those that have businesses. But of course, those that work in the civil service, whether federal or state, are on strike. The passengers are going in. I spoke with the staff of the airport a couple minutes ago, and he told me that yes, they are allowed to go in because the location of the airport has multiple routes leading into it through the villages that surround the airport, and so the passengers take advantage of this and get in. But their vehicles cannot get in, so they have to walk. I mean, if you look behind me, you see people walking into the airport, but I am being told that there is no checking in or boarding just yet.
Well, Charles, your report about adequate security is quite reassuring, and we hope that things stay that way at the airport. But in the statement released by Nwate, notifying that it is embarking on this strike also, the association says that it acknowledges that international flights would have to run, and as a result, international flights, the strike there will not commence until June the 4th. So international flights will be allowed to run. Please confirm to us, Charles, if that is the case from your observations at the airport.
Okay. So the airport the terminal I'm standing in front of is the domestic terminal. The international terminal is like maybe like a 2-minute drive in that direction, and the flights only take off in the night. So as of this moment, I cannot confirm whether or not international flights will go. But yeah, privately, when I was talking with the chairman of the chapter chairman of ANAP, we did not say anything about blocking or ticketing international flights. He was just merely talking about the local flights. So as of this moment, nothing has been said to suggest that international flights will be disrupted. Okay.
All right, Charles Umar, thank you for your reporting. Of course, eyes and our ears are watching everywhere across the country. But if there's any new development as far as international flights are concerned, please, we'll be glad to know. Our correspondent, Charles Oporum, right there in Port Harcourt, giving us updates. As much as possible, we'll touch base with other correspondents around the country. I think let's now go over to Makurdi, the Benue State capital, where our correspondent Pius Angbo is standing by. Pius, we just got to Port Harcourt. Let's find out from you what exactly is going on. What is the feelers you're getting? Are there compliance, and how is it affecting the polity in Makurdi and Benue State in general? Pius?
Thank you very much, Uzono. I am here at the NLC Secretariat in Makurdi, where the joint action group from TUC, NUC, and NLC are meeting behind me to review their implementation strategy for the strike called by the national bodies. This morning, going off to drop my children at school, there were very few vehicles, few pupils at the school there. The streets are empty, not as busy as you would want to have a rush hour in the morning experience. I'm yet to go to the secretariat to see if workers are turning up, but the strategy here is that every unit chapter chairman and secretaries would go with their mandate later to enforce anyone who defied the order to go to work and sit at their offices, because they want to have the compliance to this industrial action, which is basically hinged on the fact that the federal government has failed to implement their position on the national minimum wage, where they call for a 600,000 monthly wage bill as minimum wage, but later reduced to 400 and something naira. They talk about how the Nigerian economy is determined by the performance of the dollar against the naira, which is about 1,400 naira to a dollar today. This has affected their income, giving instances that if you're in abroad, you earn $20 per hour. 8 hours give you $160. In 22 days, that gives you $3,520. If you convert that to Nigerian currency in a month, that's about 4.9 million naira. And they are asking for 450,000 thereabouts. So this is the position they are asking government to take a look at. If their spending is determined by the performance of the dollar on the economy, why wouldn't they opt so they can have enough purchasing power in the economy? This is the discussion going on. We're waiting for them to hear what they will come up with from.
I can see your arithmetic is quite right, and Labour is demanding a big one. But let's see how that plays out. Another question I wanted to find out from you. The Attorney General has released a statement yesterday saying this is unacceptable, is illegal. There's a pendency in terms of an interim injunction. There's also the issue of 15 days notice to the federal government. The police has released a statement through the IGP saying, look, Labour, you need to reconsider your position. The federal government says this is illegal. What are you hearing as to the position of the federal government from members of Labour? Are they even aware or making any statement in that regard as to what could happen if they continue with this strike action?
I can tell you that these guys are resolute on this strike action. They have said that whatever be the case, from today through tomorrow, they'll be enforcing the strike order across offices, meaning that this will put them against state authorities who would want to implement or enforce the court order or interim order. So it's for them a no going back situation, because they want to drive home what affect them primarily, wage in services they have rendered. So it is not, they are not afraid of that, according to what I've just had informal conversation with them, that they are not afraid of any of those others, that they have a mandate from the National Secretariat to implement this, and they will do so. That's why this meeting is called, to have all the chapter heads ready for action when they need to go enforce in their various units, ministries, departments, and agencies.
Paya Sangbo from Makurdi, our correspondent there. Thank you so much for your reporting. Well, there's a lot. We're monitoring everywhere across the country. As soon as we get the feelers in any part of the country, we'll bring you up to speed. But for your information, in case you're not aware, the organized labor made up of the Nigerian Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress have embarked on an indefinite strike action beginning today. The reason is because they say that they do not agree with the position of the federal government in terms of the proposal as to what should be the minimum wage, as well as the refusal to reverse electricity tariff. Those are the bone of contention. Both sides are groundstanding, and our job is to set the agenda for you to be part of the discourse. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue conversation right here. Join us again. Welcome back. The issue of labor and organized labor, we should say, and the federal government is heating up. Today is just the very first day and things are already happening. Let's tell you what is the direct impact of that strike action that began today. The Transmission Company of Nigeria is now informing the general public, all of us, that the labor union has shut down the national grid, resulting in blackout nationwide. So in case you do not have light, we just told you why. The national grid was shut down at about 2:19 a.m. Nigerian time earlier this morning, June the 3rd. And so they've been trying to restore it, but it seems like it's not working yet. So, but they're just trying to inform everyone that this is the reason for the blackout we're experiencing across the country today. And, well, we'll continue to monitor what's going on in the country as far as the issue of labor is concerned. But we'll switch gears now for a moment to talk about something kind of related as well, because at the end of the day, if the federal government agrees with labor, the federal government will pay, state government will pay, local government will pay. It's across board. Whatever is agreed, it's going to be binding depending on what the resolution is. We're talking about the issue of states and local government delivering on the dividends of democracy. Most of the time when we talk about governance, a lot of focus is on the federal government, but we hardly talk about the states, which is why we're focusing on them today, as well as the local government. We've been joined on the program by the National Coordinator of Democracy Vanguard, Mr. John Mutu, joins us from our Abuja studio, as well as Mr. Giwa. Victor Giwa is a legal practitioner. He joins us from our Abuja studio. And right here in our Lagos studio, we have Olusegun Lemon. He's Executive Director, Paradigm Leadership Support Initiative. Mr. Lemon, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me. Happy to join.
And gentlemen, I must say thank you so much for coming on the program. Let's come to you, Mr. Giwa, on this particular one. You're the legal practitioner. So let's have your take on the issue of the back and forth between labor. Labor is saying, we are not backing down. We've given you 31 days to come up with a price or an amount, but we don't like what you're proposing. Government is now saying you're following the line of illegality and there are consequences for whatever action you are taking. Where do we go from here? Let's take that before we talk about the issue of state and local government, if you don't mind.
Well, thank you very much and good morning. It's unfortunate that we are at this point, and not only is it unfortunate, it's laughable. Now, we should remember the issue of minimum wage was one of the components of the engagement between the federal government and labor last year, sometimes in October 2023, when the Nigerian Labour Congress and the TUC, they were dealing with the issue of removal of fuel subsidy, which this government announced, during its swearing in and all of that. And one of the key points by the memorandum of understanding that was signed between the federal government and the NLC was one, that they are going to look at the issue of minimum wage. If you could remember, there was this thing of paying 35,000 naira to federal government staffs, 25,000 naira to 15 million Nigerians, and some other packages that the government were going to do. The government also mentioned, as part of their MOU, that they were going to have things like incentive reduction of taxes, value-added taxes will not be paid on diesel for 6 months, and all of that. I mean, you will see something like, oh, we are going to play down on taxes. But what did we have? What did federal government come up with? There's an increase in tariff. Not just minimal increase, a 200% increment in tariff for the electricity. I mean, I don't understand. You have removed fuel subsidy. The prices of all components of items in Nigeria has increased. The denominator, the minimum wage of workers, have not increased. Just like they argued, you have devalued the naira. As at the time you came in, dollar was 430. As at now, dollar is about 1,600. I mean,
pardon me.
It's also surprising that.
Yeah, pardon me, Mr. Giwa. So the part we need your legal guidance on as well. Yes, this touches everybody, so the economy is quite touching. But the legality or otherwise, which the Attorney General said, well, there's a June order saying that Labour should not embark on a strike as far back as last year, and Labour is going on a strike. So, which is legal, which is not?
Okay, I saw the memo from the Attorney General quoting section 41.2 and 42.1 of the Trade Union Dispute Act. Basically, he's talking about the 15 days notices that was supposed to be given by trade union before embarking on a strike. And it also makes reference to the fact that section 18 of the Trade Union Act that talks about issue of disputes, resolution, section 4.6 of the Trade Union Dispute Act that talks about settlements, that when there are engagements, you are not supposed to have undertaken a strike. And also when that dispute has been referred to the National Industrial Court. But with respect to the Attorney General and his letter, the Labour Union has given out notices of their strike earlier before now. As part of their negotiation, they have always said that, look, if the federal government does not implement the minimum wage as discussed, they are going to embark on strike at the end. They are giving them till May 31st of last month, right, that they want to see the implementation of the minimum wage before. So they have met up the 15 minimum of 15 days notice. Okay, so I don't really understand the purpose of that provision of section 41 as referenced by the Attorney General. Okay, so I guess that's that about that for now. It's a full day. So and the issue of industrial court, and the issue of the fact that the case is in industrial court. The case in the industrial court between Labour and the federal government was the issue of the increment in the removal of fuel subsidy, and not on the wage, not on the dispute about minimum wage. So what the federal government took to the industrial court was the strike as a result of the removal of fuel subsidy. And so it is quite different from what they are talking right now. What was in court was the issue of strike on the fuel subsidy and not on minimum wage. All right, so let's talk about the main issue now, which we're having this conversation. And of course, Bukola is starting off this one. Bukola.
Yes, thank you, Kadi. Well, beyond okay, let's just go straight to the conversation. And I'm going to start with you in our Lagos studios. The essence of this conversation is how we concentrate on the federal government and its responsibilities. And in the last 1 week, we've been talking about assessment, result, effort, and what to allocate. But really, the responsibility of the state government vis-a-vis the local government should also come into focus. And I took time to look at some of the budgets of some states, and they talk about prioritizing infrastructure and human capital development. In your own opinion, are you seeing the result of that investment, particularly in the last 20 plus years of democracy, the result of prioritizing human capital development at the subnational level on the economies, so to speak?
Well, thank you, Kola, for that question. I would say that indeed the political leadership at the subnational level do get away with a lot of things. And again, to reiterate what you said, there's attention on the federal government on who is the president and who is the head of the government. But unfortunately, even where the president intends to push through his policies, through his appointees, they can't do much without working with relevant authorities at the subnational level. There is no place called the federal. I mean, in terms of inhabitants of Nigeria now, everybody resides at one state, in one community, at one local government or the other. So interventions are directed at those levels. When you then look at what has happened in the last 20 years, like you said, you see infrastructure gaps, you see development deficits, and then you wonder, where are the monies going? The policies that are being developed, whether by federal institutions or state institutions, what are they about? The objectives of these policies, what are they about? And again, is when you look at, for instance, let's pick on poverty, for instance. You have in 2022, the MBS, came about 133 million Nigerians being multidimensionally poor. 33% of that number, about 44 million Nigerians, are concentrated in 10 states. Those 10 states, when you look at it, you have 8 of those states are in northern Nigeria, 2 of them are in southern Nigeria, and those 2 are Bayelsa and Ebonyi. When you look at Bayelsa, for instance, Bayelsa in 2022 had revenue, not budget, revenue of more than 300 billion. Revenue. That was before subsidy was removed. Revenue now to states have shot up maybe 200, some cases 250, 300%. Why would you have the level of poverty that you have in Bayelsa, a state where you have just 8 local government? What's the population? But again, is that when you then look at what states are spending on, these 10 states that I mentioned now, you have Sokoto leading, you have Taraba somewhere there, you have Zamfara, you have Yobe, you have, the likes. Now, when you look at what they are spending on, and each of these states have maybe an average of 100 billion naira a year, they are not spending more than 10% on education. Not up to 10% on education. The combined, I'm talking about combined. In 2022, the total revenue that accrued to all the 10 states, I'm just picking on 10, about 1.5 trillion. And like I said, the removal of subsidies, so revenue has gone up. They are not spending up to 10% of their revenue on education, not up to 7% on healthcare, not up to 5% on agriculture. They are not spending up to 5% again on water. They are not spending up to 5% on transportation. And these are critical social issues that need to be dealt with when you are talking about poverty. So it then again is that what are the governors then spending on? And linking this up to what's happening with the labor now, I'm not averse to what Labour is canvassing for in terms of minimum. I mean, it needs to be reviewed. Everybody agrees when you look at the inflationary pressure in the economy. But I will ask you, after this minimum wage has now been agreed on, what happens? Because we always have this micro, analysis of issues. So when my space is taken care of, what happens? How many people are in the payroll of the government? How many people are even in the payroll of the private sector? I think those are the real issues. I'll give you a last example. Throughout last year or year before, we had ASU always on TV, screaming and shouting about the working condition. Now the working condition has been adjusted, really. Now, when last did you hear ASU say anything?
Well, they did say something last month.
What have they said about education? What have they said about healthcare? What have they said about agriculture? What have they said about transport? Have you heard ASU declared a strike? Owing to the gap in the transportation sector.
Oh, I get it. But
those are the real issues. And that's what affects the common man. Like I said, how many people are on the payroll of the government? How many people are on the payroll of the private sector? Many people, now we have to rebase the unemployment structure. We used to have it up there, but now we rebase it to 5% because the government then agrees that many people are self-employed.
Perhaps ASU is taking responsibility for its own space. It had spoken recently about, government's attempt to grant it autonomy, thereby taking away financial subsidies or subventions from it. And we've seen in the past how labor leaders, join in solidarity with ASU to protest. But let's take the conversation now to Mr. Mutu in our Abuja studio. Do you have the same observations about the same question in the last 20 years or so of democracy about investment of the subnationals? If they say that they're indeed prioritizing human capital development, why are we not seeing the results?
Thank you so much. Good morning, Nigerians. A very, very important topic and a very important question here. And I agree to a large extent with Shegun on what he said. The question is, can the federal government alone deliver services to Nigeria? The answer is no. We practice a federal system of government where we have 3 tiers of government: the federal, the state, and local government. The Constitution clearly delineates responsibilities among these 3 tiers. Each of them is expected to provide specific services, and until the 3 of them effectively provide those services, we'll continue to maybe have gaps, and Nigerians will continue to suffer. But unfortunately, the federal government has a coordination role to play, and they have not been able to provide that role effectively. And that is why a lot of Nigerians continue to look up to the federal government. The federal government has also not been able to effectively frame the narrative for Nigerians to see clearly the role of the states, the roles of the local government in that service delivery value chain. And because of that, the responsibilities has largely lied with the federal government, and people continue to look onto the federal government without looking at the subnationals. But again, the federal government provides coordination role, like I said, and also have a responsibility to enforce compliance to the Constitution, where the state and the local government who are drawing revenue from the federal government are not using those resources effectively, especially the local government, where they draw huge amounts of revenue from the federation accounts, but nobody is seeing where those resources are used for. The federal government, until just recently, has the responsibility to ensure that those resources are accounted for and used judiciously. But 3 drivers that enhances good governance, that enhances effective service delivery, lies with the federal government. And that is why Nigerians will continue to look up to the first, the removal of fuel subsidy, which has impacted and maybe created a spiral reaction across the value chain, was championed by the federal government, which is not within the remit of the local state and local government. The valuation of the currency was also done by the federal government, and this has impacted largely on the capacity of the state and local government to deliver services. Electricity, which is required by private sector, by businesses and Nigerians, also is largely, driven by the federal government. The failure of the federal government to effectively provide leadership across those 3 areas have continued to make the states to push the narrative and push the blame to the federal government. And until the federal government is able to, effectively drive those 3 factors and make sure that there is effective electricity, there is also good exchange rates, across the country, and also provide safety net for the fuel subsidy regime, Nigerians will continue to suffer at that level. Shegun did say that most of the states, their revenue has increased over the last 1 year due to the removal of fuel subsidy. I agree. But also, we must also remember that due to the removal of fuel subsidy and the devaluation of the country, the purchasing power of those resources, those revenue, has also reduced. If a state government was constructing a kilometer of road with 10 million in 2023, with the removal of subsidy and the inflation, that 10 million can no longer construct that same level of kilometers of road. So while the volume of money and the quantum of money going to the states and local government has increased, the purchasing power has reduced. And that is why labor is justified to go on strike and ask for increments in the minimum wage.
All right. All of these issues are tied, really, and let's just bring some updates on the situation across the country. We've brought updates from River State, from Benue, but here in Lagos, concerning aviation, we understand that the gate of the Murtala Mohammed Airport 2 in Lagos is being occupied as we speak, and quite a number of passengers are stranded with the luggage in hand as aviation unions locked the gate. So we understand that staff and passengers have no access into the terminal as the nationwide strike begins. We also understand that it's same situation in the nation's capital, Abuja, the Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport, and we hear that inside the Abuja airport terminal is empty, no staff, and airline stands, they're empty as well, that there are few passengers at one of the entrances there. The gates are locked, so obviously pilots cannot get in. So that is the situation in Abuja. Same in Lagos, where we understand that the gate is locked. That's where we're at right now. This strike clearly is crippling a lot of things. We know a lot of business people want to maybe travel for business appointments, strike some deals and the rest, but that is clearly not happening. So I'll come to you, Mr. Giwa. It looks like now is the time to maybe have the tough conversations, and that's what we're doing on the show this morning. Is this really a legal issue? Because the president has now gone to court, or at least the federal government has gone to court to get some sort of interpretation for this. Is this a legal issue or just a common sense issue? Let's sit down and say, what should it be? What does the Constitution say? Is it clear enough? What works for us as a nation? I don't know. Should we spend time really going to court back and forth? Because the former administration sort of did the same thing, and we're where we are right now with the NFIU guidelines and the rest.
Well, it's, like I said before, it's just unfortunate that we are at this point. It is actually not a legal issue. It is only in Nigeria, to the best of my knowledge, that you go to court for almost everything. You go to court when your wife is not listening to you. You go to court when you cannot pay your school fee. You go to court for almost everything, and you put a lot of pressure, in the courts, in the court system. Courts are not to solve political and economic issues. They are to just look at legal issues and interpretation of the Constitution. I mean, the facts before us are just clear. And if you look at it, the labor union and the federal government had an MOU, and even the Attorney General, a representative of the Attorney General, was not even there. I mean, to the best of my knowledge, the document I saw, I didn't see any representative, any signature from the office of the Ministry of Justice. And now when the Attorney General wants to go to court, to do what? To interpret what? I mean, these are factual issues. I think that the issue should be more political than being legal. Let us not draw I mean, if you give an order, the court cannot give an order that will not be enforceable. The court cannot just, you cannot make mockery of the court. I mean, are you going to go to court to ask for an order telling the labor leaders to go to court when even in some cases, the government themselves do not even obey court orders? I mean, you can see what's happening everywhere in Kano and all of that. So I think that the Attorney General should be circumspect, and the government should look at this issue and solve it politically, bring the labor union to the round table, and ensure that people like the Attorney General and Nigeria Bar Association be involved in this negotiation so that they can ensure compliance. The government can always comply with agreements. The problem the labor union have always said is that government has never respect argument. Government never respect agreement. They don't stay committed to the agreement. If you, government, you are not committed to your agreement, what are you going to do with the courts? So that is the major problem. So it is never a
my apologies, Mr. Agiwa. My apologies, please. Because of time, we're just trying to race as much as possible. We will like to cross over to Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, to get an update of what is going on as far as the strike action is concerned in Ibadan. Our correspondent, Bukola. Bukola, thank you so much. Maybe give us an update quickly as to what is the level of compliance where you are.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm reporting live from Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. We have been to the NLC Secretariat this morning to see whether the usual gathering will be present there, but the place looks deserted. We spoke to the Secretary of the NLC earlier on, and he did confirm that the strike is on and is effective. So to confirm this, we are currently at Anglican Commercial Grammar School, Total Garden, here in Ibadan. And we met a few of the students who are still, just returning home. And some of them who spoke off camera told us that they were not even aware that there was going to be a strike, but they got here this morning and the teachers had to turn them back. If you can see behind me, there are quite a number of the teachers that we can see discussing in groups just under that building right behind me. So none of them is speaking to us, but of course, it looks like the strike is effective. I'm aware that about 11 other unions have keyed into this, including Nubife, the banking unions and all that. So we have gone to a few banks. It looks like there are skeletal services ongoing. But as the day progresses, we'll find out whether they too have keyed properly into the strike. But for schools, there's no show here in Oyo State.
Bukola, thank you for your reporting. We must leave Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, and go to the FCT and find out how things are playing out there also as far as the strike is concerned. Our correspondent, Dele Omoyeni, joins us now. Hello, Dele. Report to the FCT.
All right, good morning, guys. Well, it's not looking so good. As Kayode is, we scooped the Federal Secretariat here in Abuja, and I can assure you that there is indeed no, it's not a protest. So you don't expect the workers to hit the streets and start protesting. It's a strike. And that has already started. Nation's capital here in Abuja, that at 12 midnight, that was the early hours of this morning, of course, electricity workers down too. So the lights went off. And that has happened. All the affiliates for the NLC and the CC are all keyed into this strike. I know the recently letters to Sanu, the recently letters to are complying with this strike. But this is the Federal Secretariat here in Abuja, and indeed it's been shut out. You just see a couple of people coming in and going out, but workers are not allowed to go in to the premises, guys.
Dele, thank you so much for reporting. Apparently, we don't have the luxury of time. There's a lot we want to talk about. But we're literally out of time. So, of course, we'll be bringing you all of those updates on Sunrise Daily, as well as our news bulletin at about 11, as every other program, as much as this strike goes on. But we must thank our guests right here. Thank you so much for coming on the program for the latest time we had to talk to you. Olusegun Lemon, Executive Director, I should say, Paradigm Leadership Support Initiative, joined us from our Lagos studio. Mr. John Mutu, National Coordinator, Democracy Vanguard, and Mr. Victor Giwa, Legal Practitioner, both joining us from our Abuja studio. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on the program. All right, so, well, that's it for us right here. And, of course, we're following up developments across the country. The strike has started. As Dele said, it's not a protest, so there's no marching on the street. It's just basically a strike action. So you'll not see workers in government institutions. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma.
Of course, we'll be back again tomorrow. God bless Nigeria. I am Bukola Koka.
Well, let's keep our head up high. Let's fix our nation, absolutely, and have a great day as much as we can. I'm Kayode Kikele, and Sunrise is next. Stay with us.